Welcome everybody to the third Thursday, our favorite time of the month, when we gather to talk about technology, emerging platforms, public media, projects that have seen the light of day, projects that are emerging, projects that have died quietly on the vine, and help each other out by brainstorming and talking about things that are going on at all of our shops. As always, much appreciation to the Public Media Innovators, I guess, I don't know, what do we call ourselves? Co-founders, co-chairs, Chad Davis from Nebraska, Amder Samdal from Wisconsin, and I am David Huppert from North Carolina. So it's a pleasure to be here on the screen joining us right now, and I'll do an intro later, but this is Jason Cooper, also in the state of North Carolina. He's head of digital at Horizon, and we'll get to him in just a quick minute. So I just wanted you to know who's on the screen. Thank you everyone for being here. We're excited today to talk about games, to talk about education use cases for games, to talk about specific applications in Fortnite versus Unity, where those live. We're going to try to cover a lot of ground. We're going to talk about why games, and then we're going to talk about how games. And this is a continuation of last month's webinar, where we had Zoe Bell from the New York Times talk about their approach to games, and which is on the heels of Amber's session at NIDA, which was also about games. So the theme here is we think that games are important. We think that is a large part of our future in public media hinges on being in the game space. Look at PBS Kids. They are invested very heavily in games. They see the light and they're doing awesome work. We think there's also potential for other audiences, more adult audiences, more teen audiences to engage with our content and services via games. But it's really hard to think about where to start and how to do that, since it's so far from a lot of our domain expertise of things that we've been doing at stations all these years. So with that in mind, we thought we would dedicate a few sessions to games, starting at NIDA, going with the New York Times, and then talking to Jason, who's got expertise coming from production and education world, and now applying that into the game space as well. As always, if you've got questions, please hit that up in the chat. Let us know. We'll be monitoring the chat throughout. Amber's going to put some resources in there about this PLC. Thank you to NIDA for hosting this again. And so we'll have resources there, questions there, we'll try to get to throughout the chat. Please feel free to use that. And just as a preview, a little bit later on in this webinar, we're going to hand it over to some of our colleagues at Nebraska Public Media, who are going to talk about their project called Expedition Nebraska, which I think was built in Unity, and now they're exploring how to take that into Unreal and what that means from a mechanic standpoint, an audience standpoint, a technical standpoint. And we're going to open it up. So you'll get to see a little bit of that, and then we'll get Jason to weigh in on some things that they might want to consider. And hopefully that'll inspire you to feel like you can play in this space as well. So chat is open, Nebraska on standby, which brings us to Jason. So Jason, I'm going to just let you introduce yourself, if you don't mind, and just tee you up by saying, also with full disclosure, that I've known Jason for several years and had the pleasure of working with him on a project that we did at PBS North Carolina, which was to launch our first AR app called Explore North Carolina, which was really cool. And in that process, I've gotten to learn a little bit more about Jason and what he does with his shop Horizon here in Durham. And they do great work for education and commercial sectors. And just really inspired by the work that they do in their shop, and really look forward to learning more today and growing to doing even more games in the future. So Jason, would you mind taking a minute just to sort of introduce yourself, tell folks a little bit about your background and where you are today with production and gaming?
Sure, yep. Jason Cooper, I'm the Chief Digital Officer at Horizon Production. Horizon's been around a very long time, over 40 years. Started out as traditional video production. Donna Mitchell, who started it, was a UNC grad, and I got introduced to her, and I was working and teaching at UNC at the time in interactive education. we built one of the first ebooks, I guess. It was a fully animated and interactive course on genomics in the early 2000s in Flash, which I still miss dearly. I love Flash for anybody out there who has come up in that time. But yeah, coming from the journalism side and working at the News Observer here in Raleigh was my first gig outside of college. Redesigned the online site and built a bunch of interactive and educational stuff there, and just have constantly evolved, and whatever new technology has come out, tried to apply that to serious applications or education or storytelling, whatever the case may be. And so always looking for whatever the new magic is and then finding a cool way to apply that to great problems. And it has led and opened some interesting doors. Most recently, I think why David asked me to kind of chime in here, we got into building experience on top of the Fortnite platform. So glad to be here, happy to share whatever insight and to be a resource. If you're on here and you need to reach out and have questions after this, please feel free, because that's probably my favorite thing about all this. It's like, even David, I think when we started building stuff on top of Fortnite and making these kind of experiences, I was like, hey, look at this Wright Brothers thing we can make. Like, you can bring the airplane in, you can talk to them, make a game. So here we are.
Yeah, it's really cool. And I also want to just add that Jason, like he mentioned getting his start when he was working at UNC in this space. And that spirit of working in education, nonprofit, has definitely stayed true to the mission of Horizon. Even though they're a sort of outside production company, they still do a ton of work with education agencies and nonprofits and state agencies. And so I just love the fact that one day Jason could be working on a project for a Fortune 500 client, and then the next day working on a project like for us, and bringing all of that knowledge and workflow and experience that goes into the Fortune 500 world back into the education world. So it's like a great benefit for us to work with a partner like Horizon, who's not just working on university and public media projects, but also working in the private sector. Yeah. So they tend to also cut us a little bit of a break, I think, on prices, because they love the work. Like, yeah. I don't know why, they're mission driven, something, I don't know, they love it. So don't tell them I said that, but I'm sure you can.
Well, I think a lot of it too is, we love public television, right? Like Horizon has been around a long time. Documentary film is still a big part of what we do, and the partnerships, with folks what used to be UNC TV and the PBS-NC and all those things. Yeah. It's just about liking the story piece, but then finding fun ways to get people to actually interact or consume those stories as well. Yeah.
Well, let's start off. By the way, little breaking news. I think we got the green light on Fort Macon, which I'll come back to you offline about and how to sync those projects together for later. But yeah, let's just start start at the beginning. So we're talking about games.
Sure.
In your opinion, game-based learning, what's a good use case for that and why?
Man, where is there not a good one? I guess let me start here then. Okay, so we use the Unreal Engine. Epic headquarters is down the street. We're very heavy in building for immersive VR and AR and that kind of thing. And when they came out with their product last year, Unreal Editor for Fortnite, which is what lets you build on top of the Fortnite platform. Our conversation at lunch one day at the office is, man, everyone comes in here and says, make my training more fun, make our educational content more interesting. Like, that is the problem a lot of people are trying to solve, like engagement, those kind of things. And it was like, well, what if we can tell people we can build on top of the most popular gaming platform in the world? And that has just turned into so many different things, right? It's not even just education and training, it's like social engagement. Like HR is very interested in it, from getting large groups of people together and interacting and not having to be in the same space, and just all these other things that games open up the opportunity for. And so that's really, I think, the core of how we even tried to adapt something like Fortnite. And we'd already been doing that, making things more interesting with just interactives. Like we mentioned Flash, which I thought was a great
Yeah.
platform. That, and this was kind of the evolution of that. Yeah.
For those of us on the call, myself included, who are still trying to learn the environment about what you're talking about, can you
Sure.
speak to just the walled off nature and how to access these things in Fortnite? What Fortnite is? Maybe just start like that. Like people know
Sure.
games are built by different game engines. Certain games are available where and how and what that means when you're saying built in Fortnite, what that means, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So traditionally, when we would build a gaming experience or something like what we're describing, like Fortnite, right? We would use a game engine. Probably two of the more popular ones that folks on here have heard of are Unity and the Unreal Engine. There are certainly many others, but those are kind of the two dominant ones in the market. And we got into using game engines to build interactive 3D product demos for the web, right? It's like the game piece is almost becoming a confusing term, right? Because you can just build so many things with the real-time technology. And then obviously there are mobile games, right? Just for traditional phone, which you also build from the game engines. But Fortnite in particular, started out as a traditional game, and then the battle royale kind of genre took off. They hit gold. Epic Games did,
Yeah.
by applying that genre to Fortnite. And it took off from there, but the back end infrastructure of that is the real magic. So hundreds and thousands, millions, even sometimes, right, of people in these virtual worlds at the same time that can be accessed through the browser, through consoles, through phones. Tim Sweeney, who is the founder of Epic Games, his vision is that Fortnite really is the platform for the big M word, metaverse, that everybody uses all the time. I think he's technically trying to solve some of the underlying issues to actually make that a reality through their Fortnite platform. And so accessing games, they have essentially a storefront, if you will, where you can build experiences that can be accessed directly through the Fortnite storefront. And then you just click into different experiences and you can link those together. Digital ecosystems of skins and games, and you can get paid for the experiences based on views. Kind of keep going on down the list of all the things on the back end, but that's just one feature of Fortnite, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like I think you hit the nail on the head by saying that the word games is people have a lot of different sort of definitions or meanings attached to that, or when they hear that word, it sort of connotes a lot of different things, but it does mean a lot of things these days. It's not just single player shoot 'em or quest or something. It's also a demo and an experience. I don't know if there's an answer to this, but the more I learn about games, not just Fortnite and Unreal, and Unity, but just even the New York Times games, like if you're in it, you can sort of maybe get a sense of scale about how widespread it is, not just in this country, but around the world. But even then, it's like daunting and you don't fully see the full scope of it. But if you're not a gamer, or maybe if you play Wordle and that's it, or something like
Yeah.
that, it is I mean, it's massive. Amber gave some stats last week. I can't forget what they were, Amber, about like how many billions and times bigger than the movie industry it is.
Oh yeah, like
It's like,
so it dwarfs the movie industry.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just massive. Okay. Anyway, so it's clearly a thing.
Sure.
And it's clearly a thing that you all are working on pretty extensively and doing really cool work. I have some other things to talk about, but I think really see, oh yeah, thank you. 190 million Americans. Yeah, amazing. I mean, I hope they all get out to vote if those that are over 18. Um, so if you can, why don't you spin up a couple examples first, and then we'll sort of talk through it as we're looking at examples, because you've been working on a few cool things, also integrating a little bit of AI into these games. And I think instead of just talking about it for the next 20 minutes and then showing, let's just maybe skip ahead and you can pull up some examples and then we'll talk as you're demoing them.
Okay. Let's see. Share. See if that works.
Cool. Yeah, we're in.
Okay, great. Hopefully I've got volume, but this, just going to show this just because it was one of the early examples that we just threw together to try and get folks to wrap their head around using something like Fortnite, but for educational purposes. So, Wright Brothers prototype was one of the things. I think we were working on a project at the time. See if I can get some volume. Can folks hear that?
Together with my brother Wilbur, I have just finished working on this new motorized airplane prototype. Could you help us test it?
It's a little low, but I could hear it. If there's any way to boost it on your end, I'm not sure.
I don't see a way actually, but that's okay. Just the thing is like once you have any of these assets in 3D, right? The plane, that kind of thing, just that ability to almost like drag and drop it in, pull in some characters. They've got some automated lip syncing stuff, right? So you're dropping in audio and just the real thing that we were kind of even trying to pitch as we were talking to some of our existing clients about it was, look, the amount of budget it would take for us to build a truly interactive thing where people could be in these experiences multiplayer, we could do question and answer, all these things. It's like, this would be a 6-figure up kind of investment to make this thing. If we're building it on top of UEFN or the Fortnite platform, we're talking about 1/5 of the budget, right? I mean, just significant efficiencies on being able to throw little demos or something like this together.
Because you can use the existing artifacts that are in the library?
Yeah, worlds, there's so many things to pull from, and the ability to just drag and drop in all the tough stuff about, control or player control, live syncing across different consoles, all the things. It's just to solve so many of the problems you would be dealing with on trying to stand something like this up. Throw another one on here and just kind of let it run in the background. So the ability to kind of create these really complex worlds. This is actually something we built, and see, I don't think many people would consider this, but this is an island that we built for Fidelity Investments. And the neat thing about this particular experience is that we recreated real offices, like there one in Durham in Texas, rebuilt those, but we got architecture files, CAD files from their folks that are building a new headquarters in Boston. We actually were able to pull that in. This space doesn't exist yet, but it exists on this island. And
Wow.
then had some, attempts at metaverse, again, that big M word, environments that they had built in 3D, and we could pull those in. And so all those things exist on this same UEFN island. And when I say UEFN, I'll probably reference that a couple times. That's the Unreal editor for Fortnite experience, the platform that I mentioned. And that is probably important to note, that is different than traditional Unreal Engine. They are two separate products right now, although just being out for the partner meetings and stuff for Epic at their conference recently, Unreal Fest, the goal is that those two things kind of come together in the end. They are finally building the actual Fortnite game with UEFN. And then you've seen the investments likely from like Lego and Disney and all those things that are investing on building their own game experiences and bringing their IP into these same worlds, essentially.
Was it able to just absorb and read those, were they CAD files, or I don't even know what those architectural files were? And then what was the process like for trying to get that data set to turn into, let's say, that building or something?
So, you know, we were definitely able to lean on some of our experience there on the optimization piece and some of that kind of stuff. But they have a product on the Unreal side called Datasmith that is built for the AEC industry, the architecture, engineering, and construction.
Oh,
cool. Helps with that kind of import. And so that's a super useful tool.
Yeah.
But I'll go ahead and they put
To explore
together
the next generation of user experiences, FCAT has created an experimental virtual island using the Epic Games Unreal Editor for Fortnite, a video game with 350 million worldwide users. The purpose of this initiative was to test social gaming technology as an option where we can interact collectively as a community of Fidelity associates. This custom island represents a combination of Fidelity's physical locations, like our new Commonwealth Pier headquarters, Westlake and Durham campuses, along with our virtual 3D worlds like FCAT 360 and the Fidelity workplace community. Players start embodied as an avatar, which are then placed on our custom island where they can drop in and explore, speak to other associates, or participate in team quests, scavenger hunts, and a trivia game. We aim to leverage social gaming technology to recreate the essence of the informal and spontaneous water cooler moment for associates through our digital experience.
You get the idea.
Yeah.
It's their little piece that they put together. And then the amount of, again, problem solving you can do, they really tasked us with, well, we really want a social experience. And so we built this whole like trivia night game inside of Fortnite where teams could get in there and run around and answer and like try and score and keep all these things. It's just like, you know, we're really getting to this crazy spot where we can almost say yes to anything. I feel like it's a really neat time. You know, and you mentioned AI at the beginning of this. That's obviously opening up some other unique doors, but yeah, Fortnite is definitely not the end all be all, right? There's some roadblocks there. I think you kind of even alluded to it, like how do I get into it, right? Not everyone is a gamer. And we have made a number of these enterprise kind of experiences, right? For somebody like a Fidelity, certainly folks even in the healthcare space where security and some of that kind of stuff is paramount. And so there are some considerations audience-wise with they've got to go to the Fortnite front door to get into these things.
Right.
That is definitely legit. But what is interesting, just because you asked about the CAD files, is, you know, these things can also, once you do that optimization, can be used to make something serious. This is obviously not a game, but this is taking those same files to build a real-time tour of this experience. And again, this is built with a game engine, but not a game. This is all about pre-visualization. And what's amazing here is in Unreal, there are really two core new advances in technology in Unreal Engine 5, Nanite and Lumen. So Nanite,
definitely excited for you to talk about these two things. They're so
yeah. So Nanite solves one of the hardest problems for somebody like us that makes things for these like kind of high-end computer graphics is poly count. Having to deal with that optimization piece and like what can a processor handle. And poly count lets you kind of, or Nanite lets you kind of ignore that polygon count on your 3D assets just through magic. I mean, it really is. It's magic. And then Lumen is kind of the solve for lighting, real-time lighting in that same way. And so it definitely feels like a bit of the cheat code right now as far as high-end graphics. The fact that we could take something stylized like these Fortnite assets, but then make something that also looks real, kind of out of the same things, if that makes sense.
Jason, can you go back to the pier for a second?
Sure.
So when I was at your shop, you know, last month, you were just showing me some of this stuff. Maybe I heard it wrong, but I thought I heard you say that, like, either with Lumen or with some other functionality, you were able to, like, as you're going through this pier and touring it, it's getting later in the day. And so the light changes as you're going through the space, not just like while you're in one room, but it's assuming 20 minutes have passed since you've been in this auditorium, and then you come outside and then the lighting is a little bit, like the sun's a little bit lower. Like, how dynamic is that? I mean, it's crazy.
Oh, I mean, yeah, we can run day-night cycles in advance, or we can tie it to the real world time. And you know, what's interesting is we've been building VR experiences that have done that since like 2016, 2017.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, NVIDIA had us make something to show off RTX GI, which was a technology that actually lets you do that, right? Like the real-time day-night cycles in these high-end graphics applications.
Wow.
And that was one of our first use cases was showing something like that in Amsterdam, of all places, for this group that made the world's first 3D printed bridge. And made a VR experience that let you walk across that in VR, and you actually you could turn one of your arms into the 3D printing robot arm and 3D print your own stuff in VR. It was crazy. So
are you basically taking credit for NVIDIA's meteoric rise in stock? Basically, you put them on the map. Is that what you're saying?
No. Although we did give a talk about it maybe a year or two before that. I don't think we had much to do with it. Yeah.
Okay, we've got two questions.
Okay.
Chat. The first one is, what license are the two engines? So yeah, that's a good question. And then the second one, maybe you can talk about this within the license question, is what's the learning curve to be able to design in any gaming engine, not just Unreal, I guess. Or I guess you can answer Unreal since that's the question, but I'm also curious just to any game, like, you know, Unity or Unreal. Yeah. And then from 0 to functional, not necessarily all the way to your level.
Sure. Let me start there. So we started out using Unity when we first got started in working with game engines. And even our first VR work was in Unity. But having Epic's headquarters down the street, and as our relationship grew there, when we'd run into them different things, they basically talked us into becoming an Unreal shop. And what is interesting, especially for a group like this, right, is how much more approachable Unreal is for non-developers. Okay. Not that there's not a steep learning curve with any of the game engines, but I think for our artists especially, they have a visual programming node-based system in Unreal called Blueprints. And so you never have to, if you don't want, write any code. It's like linking things together, right? Nodes or different if-then statements. So it's like visual programming. They also have a considerable amount of like starter templates, right? If you want to build a certain type of game, there's likely even if you want to make something in VR, there's a VR first player template that you drop into, and then you drop your assets in, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So again, it used to be Unity, we transitioned to Unreal, and then the really cool thing about Unreal is, with all the money they have made in Fortnite, they've really just continued to invest in dog fooding their own stuff. They create all this tech for themselves that they then just give away, right?
And they also give away money. There's the MegaGrants. We have not gotten one yet. We've applied twice, but I know other people have. And the last time I checked, it was like a Google form to fill out. It was like not a major, huge public media type of RFP or grant process. I don't know if they've changed that, but the MegaGrants are extremely generous and they have a ton of money, as Jason said, that they're looking to get other folks, give them some seed money to experiment. So like Patrick's asking, what's a small, low level or low lift project that someone might be able to start with? I would say if you come up with that idea, but you don't necessarily have the funding to do it, that's where the mega grant might be able to come in and help you execute that. But Jason, what would you say to that question? Like where to start? I have an idea. I want to get involved. What should we do? Thank you, Amber.
Yeah, they have some really great, they have the Unreal Engine Online Academy, right? So there's a slew of just like training resources and those kinds of things. They also just launched, excuse me, a platform called Fab, which brings all of their like 3D assets, real world scans of like rocks, trees, all these 3D assets. Like even if you're not a modeler of any kind, right? There's a whole marketplace of what are right now free assets. You just go grab and drop these things and put your scenes together.
And they're cleared, like there's no worry about copyright infringement or
correct.
Anything like that.
Yeah. They're free and clear, or people that are opening up a storefront, or like a group like ours, we could go in, say we spent a ton of time building a Wright Brothers model, right? Yeah. You could go and you could purchase that asset for some, you know, insignificant amount compared to what it would take you to do it yourself, kind of thing.
Right. So you can get like a generic airplane, or that if you wanted the specific model, or yeah, that's a cool
one. Exactly. So they're bringing all these things together. They purchased a company called Sketchfab that had been very focused on that, and they kind of integrated it all in together. I mean, I feel like they're doing a lot of good things for all of us who are interested in creating this kind of content and trying to make it easy and approachable. You know, yeah. We're not quite at like the PowerPoint level of this thing yet, but it like gets closer and closer to being able to drag and drop.
Well, this is great. And it's certainly fun to see some of these examples. I'm wondering if you could share that other example that leverages AI and voice that you had shown me, and then we'll kick it to our friends in Nebraska so they can show a little bit of theirs afterwards. But you're able to share that one, Jason?
Yeah, let me give a little bit of, I guess, context.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, we're working, again, the neat thing I think you mentioned about Horizon is, you know, we're not just building things for like Fidelity and Lenovo and like Fortune 500 folks, but a lot focused on education. So one of our big projects right now is with the North Carolina Department of Natural Cultural Resources here, and like updating these historic sites across North Carolina and getting in these missing perspectives that are at a lot of these places that are focused on really a singular thread about history, right? Missing a lot of voices. And so we basically hosted like a science fair, honestly, where all these proofs of concept of how we could apply all these different kinds of technology to integrate these things into these existing spaces. Obviously, artificial intelligence one, a whole lot of augmented reality and web AR, where you don't have to download something to interact with AR. And so one of them, I'm sure there's been conversations in these groups around AI, especially synthetic video. I think I'll mention right now, one of the biggest changes from a production standpoint for us has been what AI can do for voice now, for sure. If you're 11 Labs is our favorite platform. I would definitely check it out if you haven't already, but what we can do for voice and translation and all those things. But one of the things is we had the head historian for the state of North Carolina came into the office. We shot him on green screen for about, I don't know, 2 minutes. And,
I can't believe that. Okay. 2 minutes.
And then we made the synthetic version of Dr. Waters. And this thing is actually, this is old now, right? So this piece of tech has gotten way better, even in 2 months. But we showed this little demo.
I'm Dr. Darren Waters here at Bennett Place, a significant historical site nestled in Durham, North Carolina. This humble farmhouse was the site of the largest surrender of Confederate troops, in which General Joseph E. Johnston met with Union General William T. Sherman to negotiate terms, leading to the end of hostilities in the Carolinas.
Pause it for 1 sec. So
Bennett Place.
You told me, and I think it's worth mentioning, or maybe you tell about his voice.
Oh yeah, his cadence, and like, this is his real voice. It literally does sound sort of robotic. I mean, or that, yeah, it was kind of funny.
At first, when I heard it, I was like, "Oh, that sounds like every filter or like TikTok sort of fake voice, you know, generated voice." But like, you're like, "No, that's actually what it's like, true to his voice." So you have to suspend that while you're watching this.
Well, again, the voice piece is perfect now.
Preserves this pivotal moment in American history, providing an immersive experience for visitors, transporting them back to that critical moment in history. So. I'm not actually Darren Waters. I'm his AI avatar. As an AI historian on demand, I can talk about anything. I could talk about the history of bubblegum or something more relevant, like comparing interpretations by.
So anyway, that was all. I mean, I think I would assume most of this group's aware of something, but this is all just text to video based off of his, synthetic version of Dr. Waters. So the idea here is that with his approval and consent, all of the sites could have these kind of AR in context, historian on demand, like deeper dives that we could produce, in infinity just by nailing down the scripts and turning that into video. And honestly, again, the advances in this, even in the last 2 months, have been pretty wild to see.
And then is the vision to create some sort of LLM or something that has all of this information that people can ask him questions?
So yeah, that's kind of the next step, which we're doing with things like soft skill training. I mean, MetaHumans, another Unreal Engine kind of product, if you will, or Epic Games product, is a nice solve for digital humans. They're really great and like gives you a head start, but that uncanny valley piece is still pretty heavy there with all of these kind of things. But from a voice and interactive standpoint, and then certainly with some of the recent large language model improvements, the back and forth is amazing. We just did a thing at the dental school at UNC where some of the faculty and the students there were trying to break a model we had trained as it was a periodontist, and it was just, I was blown away at how it was handling some of their tough questions. And this is, voice and response and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. All right, Jason, hang around, if you will, because we're going to pivot real quick and come back to you on the flip side of this. We're going to welcome some of our colleagues from Nebraska Public Media. So Amber, if you can help pull up Mike Fields and Patrick Bate from Nebraska Public Media, who are working on or have done a project with Chad and a bunch of others called Expedition Nebraska, which is a virtual natural history experience, which was awesome and very cool. Webby Award honoree, has been out in the world and done really well. And as part of this Public Media Innovators series, what we have always hoped for is that we offer some time for different stations to showcase what they're working on and have folks on the chat chime in with questions or suggestions or did you think about, or inspiration, wherever it takes you and whatever phase of development it is. And so we have a subject matter expert here, Jason, who's also going to be a participant in that process. Thanks, Chad, for putting the link in the chat to Expedition Nebraska. And Patrick and Mike are going to talk a little bit about their process of I don't want to steal your thunder, but just to set it up, I think you created this in Unity and now you're trying to create an Unreal version of it, and just some questions and things that you're thinking about from a technical perspective, a user perspective. Yeah, so I'd love to hand it over to Mike and Patrick. If you all want to introduce yourself real quick and set up the project and talk about it, and then show a little bit and ask some questions you have for Jason or the group. Happy to jump in, and excited to see your work. So thanks, Michael, Mike, and Patrick.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I'm Mike Fields, Director of Software Development in the Labs Department at Nebraska Public Media. And
yeah, I'm Patrick Bate. I am a producer at Nebraska Public Media in the Labs Department. I am producer on Expedition Nebraska specifically. And,
so yeah, we're starting to focus on games, having just released our first game, Civic Scribble. We do have 3D experience with Expedition Nebraska, other projects, modeling, and particularly experience in Unity. So now we're looking to use that in building experience for Fortnite, looking to take advantage of the huge player base, and also looking forward to a time when people are in Fortnite for reasons other than the Battle Royale.
Yeah, absolutely.
With UEFN, what they're opening things to, there's a diverse, wide range of experiences. So with that, I'll let Patrick show a little bit about what we built for Expedition Nebraska and some of what we're starting to play with in Fortnite.
yeah, let me set this up here. It's interesting. There we go. Okay. So the first thing to kind of demonstrate here, and let me go into full screen on this. This is the original version that we did of Expedition Nebraska. This is in sorry. Yeah, this is the WebGL version that we did, and the reason we kind of landed on this platform is accessibility. That's kind of the first thing we think about when we start doing these things, is trying to make sure that as many people as possible can actually see it, can play through it. So this is all running in a web browser, and it was built in Unity and based on some assets that we got from the local museum, the University of Nebraska State Museum. And a lot of that is these fossil scans. These are photogrammetry scans of different animals. We have about 40 different animals in the game. And the way this is structured is that you travel to one of 7 of these spaces that are representative of different North American land mammal ages. And it kind of tells the story of how the ecology of Nebraska changed over time, and how the animals changed over time, and how those two things kind of influence each other, and how you can make inferences about one based on information you find about the other. So you can see that it's pretty low fidelity, low poly. It looks bigger than it is. This is a very limited space in terms of how much travel you can do. You can see we've got a path on the ground here that sort of tells people where they are allowed to go, but at a certain point you will hit a wall. These models out in the distance are very lo-fi. They do not hold up to scrutiny, and they are primarily there for kind of just the ambiance and the atmosphere of the space. So one of the things we were kind of excited about trying to do when we moved over to doing this in Fortnite and through Unreal is that the level of detail we were able to get to is substantially higher.
Like instantly, right? I mean, you just
yeah, it was kind of like throwing off the shackles of those limits.
yeah.
So yeah, so I may have got a little carried away with the level of detail in this space, but we've run into a couple different struggles, but so you can kind of see that this is set up in a somewhat different way. Not if you can see that map there, but if you look at this environment, we're kind of in a forest, which is different from that grassland space that I was demonstrating earlier in Unity. And if you look at the animals that we've got placed here, they are substantially different in shape and size. This is a small rhinoceros called Manoceros. You can see that it's got some unusual features, has these two horns side by side. And so what we've kind of done in this environment is, rather than splitting it up into 7 different North American land mammal ages, the idea that I had, at least for this kind of experiment, was to put them in one space and allow people to travel between them, not by portals, but just by kind of walking around. And you can see that I've got this river built here, and you can kind of cross over that. And on the other side, the space opens up. And in terms of actual space and time, this is not borne out by what happened in prehistoric Nebraska or anywhere in the world. These animals did not share space, and these environments didn't necessarily share space either. But by doing this, we can explore the key story that we're trying to tell in Expedition Nebraska, which is how the grasslands and prairies of Nebraska came to be, and the types of animals that originally inhabited those spaces. As I say, we have 40 different animals that our team are working through, and you can see that these models are much more detailed than what we had in Unity. Our team have been working really hard on getting these built. They are not rigged for animation yet, which is why some of these are in very unusual poses.
Yeah.
Elephants do not generally hold their trunks out like that. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun to just kind of see how we can kind of push these materials and build these spaces up. These are camels. This is Hemialchinia. That over there is Gigantocamelus. And you can see that these are animals that are adapted to eating grass, which is a very specialized thing. We think of it as very normal now, but throughout the history of life on Earth, eating grass is not a normal thing to do. It's a very difficult thing to do, and it's something that an animal has to be highly specialized in order to actually get anything from, because grass does not have a lot of nutrition in it. So you can look at those fossils and see that those adaptations are present. And by seeing that, you can see what the space looked like, what kind of fauna, or rather flora, you might find in a space, because you can tell where the animal lived by looking at what its teeth look like or how big it is. The animals that are in this forest space are generally smaller and not as fast, because they don't have to be fast. They don't have to run across the prairie. They don't have to evade predators by fleeing. They can hide. So they're smaller. They are browsers. So anyway, I'm kind of getting into the weeds on the content here, which is something that I often do. So by all means, please step in and stop me. But
I did want to point out that people had asked if other stations can do this. Patrick has not been one of our Unity developers, so he's not coming into this with in-depth Unity experience, but has learned all of this in a fairly short amount of time. The terraforming, I think you can stop your sharing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Patrick.
do that here.
But we're starting to get enough documentation and training in UEFN, which is something we ran into early last year when it was released, that it was a very new product. So
Yeah,
the
definitely
document
a beta. We were pushing a little harder than they were ready for even. But what I think the magic of what you just showed, right, of those environments, the lighting, all the graphics, right? You didn't have to have an army of modelers and folks that were good at rigging and doing all those things. I mean, even a term folks may not be familiar with, LOD, so level of detail, that thing where you can see far off into the distance in a game. If you don't do that well outside of something like this where they're actually handling all that for you, you can only build a very small environment before things bog down processor wise and that kind of thing. So it's just it really is a big shortcut for creating a fully interactive thing like this.
And you mentioned earlier working on a trivia game.
Yeah.
And one of the experiments that I tried a little bit earlier through Expedition Nebraska was to build a similar kind of thing, a trivia experience, to just kind of try and work in some of that educational content that we developed. And again, not a lot of programming knowledge under my belt, but it was something I was able to kind of knock out pretty quickly, because yeah, it is very, very much just kind of assembling nodes and plugging things in and kind of figuring out how the devices work with each other, and it's fast. It's extremely fast.
One of the things I was hoping, we have about, let's say, maybe 5 or 6 minutes left of this before we wrap, and just do some housekeeping at the end to promote next month's webinar, which will feature colleagues from across the system again to talk about AI use cases across the spectrum and different levels of your organization. So Amber will put a registration to that hopefully in the chat soon. Make sure to sign up for that, because that's going to be a lot of fun. You'll hear from a lot of different stations about AI. But one thing I was hoping to do here was, I come to Jason sometimes and I'm like, hey, I got an idea for a thing. And he'll be like, oh, great. I love brainstorming. Why do you want to do it? Who's your audience? What are you trying to accomplish? So let's just suspend for a second that Mike and Patrick want to just learn Unreal, and just because, for the sake of learning it, because it's a cool endeavor, because who knows what, and you might just want to pick up a new skill. But maybe role play a little bit, like, take us back to the beginning. Why are you transporting it from Unity to Unreal? And Jason, if you were like, potentially going to collaborate with them on helping them to develop it or build it out, like, what questions would you have at this point in it, since they already have an existing game? What's going through your head? Maybe just start there, Jason, like, having seen what they've done in Unity a little bit, and then having seen a little bit about their vision for it, poke some holes in here, like, tell us like opportunities that they may be able to explore, or if you think that this is a good use case for that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when I saw your WebGL version, I love that, because that's how we got started. I own the domain, thebrowserwins.com. Like, I'm a big believer in, eliminating friction is the number one thing for kind of any experience like this, right? Like, making it easy for people to get into it, right? All that kind of stuff. So anytime there's an opportunity to make something that doesn't require an app download and that kind of thing, love that. For Fortnite in particular, obviously there's a huge opportunity for a younger demographic, younger target audience, educational stuff. Fully believe in that. But I love seeing those portals, because portals are a concept that just translate very well to all this stuff. And so there is an opportunity there. You mentioned devices, Patrick. We built a device that lets you teleport. So lets you teleport to different spots of the island, lets you teleport to different spots in time, right? All those kinds of things, and a little menu system. It may require getting into, there is a new programming language if you want to do some of those fancier things, called Verse, that Epic is like literally writing for this stuff. But I love what David mentioned. I love starting at the end on things like this of, okay, if everything went perfect, what was our goal, right? What is the takeaway we want people to have? Like, what do we want to, in an ideal solution that we've come up with, what do we want people to walk away with? I love starting there. On a lot of our traditional projects, I love the whole, all right, what is our demo reel that we're making at the end of this project? What are all the things that we want to go into that? And that is honestly what leads a lot of times to us building some new tech or new capability or new thing, is like thinking about the end demo reel we would make of this project. And so even like the feature lists, like, people are going to learn about prehistoric era animals, like, what are all those things, and then working backwards from there to make the experience that does those things.
So Jason, a big question that I've wrestled with is, considering building for Fortnite, how much do we need to take into account the existing Fortnite player base and the expectations that they come into this with, versus with UEFN opening this up to a diverse range of experiences and even completely different looks than native Fortnite, looking forward to a time where everything exists in Fortnite and people are coming in for reasons other than Battle Royale. So there are some base expectations, like with the Fortnite movement, that sort of thing. Patrick talked about how limited our WebGL version was. People move around a lot more freely in Fortnite. So maybe a bigger area or How much? Yeah, how much do we need to adapt for Fortnite itself?
I think you definitely want to be taking advantage of all that they're kind of giving you for free. That would be hard, right? I mean, honestly, that's the big reason to build something on top of UEFN is you're getting all of this investment in infrastructure and technology essentially for free. They'll even pay you if you get a lot of eyeballs on it, right? This is a potential money making opportunity, literally, right? Engagement gets paid out. The other really neat thing that's happening right now is, you don't have to build that realistic landscape. You can build the Lego version of that thing, right? And Disney, oh, by the way, is now letting you use their IP as part of these experiences. Like the fact that you can build an educational thing that uses Star Wars and Marvel characters.
Crazy.
And you can it's not a get away with it thing now. It's like an encouraged thing that you can use, this IP is a tremendous opportunity, right? I mean, to draw eyeballs to content that might not have gotten it, otherwise. So there's a lot of benefits. And then I think that budgetary thing is another one. Like we literally had a Poe Center for Health Education. We were building an AR experience with filters and some of these other things. And when we got this opportunity came along, it's like, hey, for that same budget, we can literally build an educational game around neural fortification and like kids making healthy choices, on top of Fortnite. And the budget's the same. And so that efficiency, that kind of bang for buck, especially for the right audience, is a really unique opportunity right now.
That's a great point. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And I think, Mike, you also are asking a really great question about expectations and assumptions for audience behavior, which is not only true for Fortnite, and it's platform specific, it's age or experience specific, and it's impossible to do one thing for all sizes. But I think you're totally right. You need to lean into, whenever you're putting a product out there, like what are the expectations of that user base? Now, sometimes a product will come in that will disrupt all of that and ignore because it's just too good to ignore, and like the world adapts to that game. But I think as we're starting to just dip our toe into it, to be aware of, okay, this is how other games operate. This is how other games and characters move through space. These are the expectations that players have when they're starting something new. I think that's really helpful. You got to know your market a little bit. I don't know it that well, but I think you're asking the right question to sort of explore that.
The other huge question I have with everybody building stuff for Fortnite, you talked
With our
about
last minute, so drop a huge question. Go for it.
is discovery. How do people find it? I mean, do people find it? I mean, are you directing there from like a station's other or presences on other platforms? I mean, is that
I would treat it like you're promoting any other kind of asset or piece of collateral that you've invested in, right? There's the being able to link right into it. Obviously, there's a lot of competition because you can earn money. There's a lot of competition on the Epic storefront, but I think they're working on categorization and some of those kinds of things. But yeah, our thing has been to just do the traditional promotional things, your landing pages, including it in your other advertising materials, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, we are at time, everybody. Jason, you volunteered to let people reach out to you. If you want to hit
please.
Put your contact info in the chat if you can.
Talking about this, like small, nimble team. I come from the journalism side, the newsroom side, that kind of thing. That is the opportunity and the advantage here, but also the sharing piece. So please feel free to reach out.
Can you put your info in the chat for everyone?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jason. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chad and Amber. This has been a really invigorating discussion about potential. I know there were some questions about how to get started and low lift and easy lifts, and excited to continue this conversation offline with all you folks about that, and encourage you all to attend next month's, which is about AI across different PLCs in the NIDA environment, with marketing, communications, engineering, IT, I think is in there, a whole bunch of folks. So you can hit up the resources that Amber mentioned earlier in the chat to figure out how to register for the next webinar, as well as previous webinars that we've done. Thank you, Amber, for putting that in there. You all rock. I hope you have a great day. Subscribe to Chad's newsletter, read all that, stay up to date on what's happening across the system, and appreciate you all for joining us today, and hope you have a great day. Thanks, everyone.